Life has a way of humbling you, especially when your identity feels tied to your performance. For athletes, injuries and transitions can shake your entire sense of self. But these struggles aren't limited to sports. Whether you're facing a career setback, a personal loss, or just life's unpredictability, the mental toll can be overwhelming. In this episode, I'm diving into what it's like to navigate mental health as an athlete and beyond, through injury, uncertainty, and the unexpected twists that force us to redefine who we are. I'll share my story of confronting identity, battling isolation, and finding healing through creativity. This isn't just about bouncing back. It's about learning how to rebuild when the life you once knew feels like it's falling apart. Let's get into it. Injuries, career uncertainty, and the inevitable transitions in life are storms every athlete faces. But few people talk about the emotional toll. For me, mental health wasn't just some buzzword. It was the quiet battle I fought when my identity and future were slipping through my fingers. I'll tell you how that felt, what I learned, and how I kept moving forward. Not just for athletes, but for anyone trying to piece their life together when it feels like it's falling apart. When injury becomes an identity crisis. The rupture of my Achilles was more than just an injury. It felt like the ground had been pulled from beneath me. Until that moment, I saw myself as invincible. People used to joke that my left leg was bionic, like something out of a LeBron James highlight reel. My speed and explosive jumps had always been my edge, the kind of athleticism that carried me through every level of competition without ever needing to overthink it. But that injury cracked the image I had of myself. Losing that athletic ability forced me to confront an uncomfortable truth. I had tied my entire identity to my performance. Who was I without my talent? Could I even still call myself an athlete if I wasn't the player I used to be? Rehab was excruciating, not just physically, but mentally. I was in a boot for several weeks, barely able to walk, let alone jump. And while I kept telling myself I'd get better, deep down I knew I'd never recover the burst that once set me apart. That thought tortured me. I wasn't in the NBA with access to top specialists or rehab facilities. I was just on my own. In a way, that made the situation even harder to swallow. I knew athletes who had torn their Achilles and never made it back to the same level, and I feared I might be next. That fear spiraled into a kind of self-imposed isolation. It was hard to explain these feelings to anyone. No one else in my life had lived through this experience. Being the man in the arena, every night, giving your all to a crowd only to be completely out of the action with no guarantee you'll make it back leaves you feeling invisible and abandoned. Navigating the business side, contract issues abroad. Playing overseas had its own challenges that I wasn't prepared for. I heard the usual warnings before heading abroad that the competition was fierce and the expectations were sky high. What I didn't hear about were the hidden frustrations, like bad Wi-Fi in isolated apartments, the long stretches of boredom between games, or worse, late payments. In many leagues, especially outside the top tiers, players often wait months for their checks, if they ever come at all. Sometimes, the final payment never arrives, leaving you stranded after giving everything to the team. I experienced that my rookie year, waiting 2 or 3 months just to see my first paycheck. At the time, I stayed focused, thinking, just keep playing, get your film, and things will improve next season. But it became clear over time that things weren't as simple as that. Even in one of the top European leagues I played in later in my career, the team folded mid-season, declaring bankruptcy. Suddenly, I had to make a tough choice: stay and fight it out, or leave and cut my losses. I chose to leave. But the constant uncertainty, never knowing if the sacrifices would be worth it, slowly ate away at my love for the game. Letting go of basketball, a battle with myself. Deciding to retire was one of the hardest choices I've ever made. In many ways, I still haven't technically retired, as it usually involves an online statement declaring such, much like my peers who shared lengthy posts on social media about their love for the game, their journeys, and the new chapters emerging as they retire. I never did that. Maybe subconsciously, I thought, well, even though I'm done, you never know. I spent nearly a decade defining myself as a professional athlete. Walking away felt like giving up a piece of my soul. If I wasn't a professional basketball player, then who was I? What could I possibly do that would bring me the same fulfillment, the same fire, the same sense of competition? But as the seasons passed, I felt more bitterness than joy. It was exhausting, giving so much of myself to a game only to have my efforts backfire because of things beyond my control. I kept thinking, if I just push a little harder, maybe things will turn around. But the reality was, they wouldn't. I had to come to terms with the fact that the business side of sports doesn't always reward effort the way the game itself does. That realization hurt, but it also gave me clarity. It was time to move on. Finding healing in creativity and expression. Without basketball, I felt lost. I had no family close by to lean on. My parents were in Africa, and my siblings were spread across America, each living their own lives. I was used to dealing with things on my own, but that didn't make it easier. There were days when the loneliness felt unbearable, but I knew I had to find new ways to express myself if I wanted to survive mentally. At first, I tried meditation. Everyone said it would help, but I struggled to quiet my mind. It was frustrating. I couldn't sit still long enough to let my thoughts pass by. That's when I turned to music. Producing beats became my version of meditation. It wasn't just a hobby, it was therapy. I'd lose myself in the process, zoning in on the sounds, layering different elements, and letting the music tell a story that words couldn't capture. It gave me something to hold on to, something that felt like mine. This creative outlet didn't just fill the time, it reshaped my mental outlook. Through music, I discovered that I could still connect with the same emotions I once felt on the court. I realized that even though I left basketball behind, I hadn't lost the parts of myself that made me great. They had just found a new home in creativity. Key takeaways. Life after loss. 1. Redefine your identity beyond titles. Whether you're an athlete, an artist, or in any other profession, it's dangerous to tie your identity solely to what you do. You are more than your job or talent, and sometimes life forces you to see that. 2. Find new ways to express yourself. Creativity, whether through music, journaling, or another outlet, can offer a path to healing. It doesn't have to look perfect or polished, it just needs to be yours. 3. Accept that progress isn't always linear. Recovery, whether from injury or life setbacks, isn't a straight line. You might not return to who you were, but that doesn't mean you can't become someone stronger and wiser. 4. Learn to let go. Walking away isn't failure, it's growth. Knowing when to pivot is a skill in itself, one that allows you to reclaim your energy and focus on things that truly align with who you are becoming. Life doesn't wait for you to figure it out, and it won't always give you what you think you deserve. But in those moments when everything feels like it's falling apart, you have a choice. You can give up, or you can find new ways to rebuild. For me, the journey didn't end with basketball. It just took a different shape. And that's the beauty of it all. Life isn't about staying in the game you started. It's about learning how to play the one that's right in front of you. Make it make sense.